Hello, everybody, and welcome to our channel. My name is Sam.
My name is Ryan. Hi, Daddy.
Hi, everyone. Look at us. We're in these little
We're
boxes.
in these little Zoom boxes.
Look at us. The content could not stop, even though it did for like
A
2 weeks.
week. No, 1 week.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Just 1 week.
Just 1 week.
That's good for us.
That is good for
That's
us.
really good for us. I'm so sorry I took that victory away from us for a moment.
Yeah, seriously.
As a lot of you guys likely know, Ryan is currently on the North American Frozen Tour. That is what has placed us in these boxes. Ryan, you're in South Carolina right now, correct?
I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah, I love it here.
Really?
Yes.
Fantastic. What do you love about it?
Honestly, the infrastructure, the vibe, the climate is really reminiscent of Minnesota, which is strange because they don't have regional similarity, but there's just something that feels very homey to it, and not homey in the sense of it's like a homey atmosphere, but homey in the sense of like familiar to the way that I grew up almost. We played Fort Lauderdale and Tampa. We were in Fort Lauderdale when it was literally the height of spring break, so that was trash. And then Tampa was cool, but
You're in a very heightened Florida.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially because the "Don't Say Gay" thing happened, and I think that it's okay to talk about this. I can't imagine why it wouldn't. Well, no, of course it is, because it's freedom of speech is a thing. But like, the "Don't Say Gay" thing happened, and a lot of Disney employees, and I'm not saying like from the tour, I'm saying like the company of Disney, in all of its facets, like complained because Disney was, on the record publicly donating to the campaigns and the legislators that made that bill a possibility, and Disney faced some backlash, and they did apologize, and we as employees of Disney sort of got a note saying, sorry, and let us know how we can support you better and all of that kind of stuff. But it was a very palpable energy that we were in a place that was creating legislation to prevent children from having the resources to realize perhaps that they were like us. South Carolina isn't famous for just having passed that legislation, so that feels better, and so far it's been great here.
That makes me so happy to hear that, at least so far in South Carolina it's been a different energy change. Before we talk for too long, Daddy, audience, viewers, we thought it would be a really lovely idea for a video for Ryan and I to sit down and just kind of talk about his tour life and fill you guys in on how Ryan is in this kind of new era of Frozen for him, and likely answer a lot of questions you probably have. So we're really excited to honestly just continue to make content for you guys on the road. Like, we're very excited that this like cute
Works.
little step is working for
Yeah.
us. So you guys will see more content like this. Just for a few more weeks as Ryan wraps up his time with the Frozen Tour. But yeah, so thank you for continuing to support us. Now, Ryan, tell the people how you rejoined Frozen, how this Frozen Tour came into your life.
Yeah, so Austin Colby, who plays Hans in the North American tour of Frozen, this is a very typical thing for theater performers who are engaged in a long run. Austin has contractual outs in his contract that he's allowed to exercise when different opportunities come his way, and he's exercised one of those outs, and so he's out of the tour for 6 weeks. And about 5 weeks ago, I was at the climbing gym up on a wall with some of my friends, and literally up on the wall, and one of my friends goes, Ryan, I think your manager's calling. And my manager kind of only calls if there's good news or bad news. And so I'm like, okay, so this is probably important. Otherwise, it would just come in an email. I was up for a television pilot at the time, and I kind of thought it was going to be that. And so I picked up the phone being like, yeah. And she's like, okay, it's not what you think. Just taking the temperature on if you would want to go on the road with Frozen. And my immediate feeling was like, oh yeah, like I see a lot of ways that this makes sense, kind of for, mind, body, and spirit. So yeah, it turned out that the guy who regularly does it was just out for a short period of time, and I'm just here filling in for that short period of time. I feel like I just started because I basically did. I've done 3.5 weeks and I only have 2 left. It's wild.
Wild. And so for anyone who's watching who doesn't know, Ryan actually played Hans on Broadway at the very beginning of 2020 for how long? Like how many shows? I know you had a rehearsal period.
Yeah, we rehearsed for like a month and a half because and it's interesting because so me, Mackenzie Kurtz, Sierra Renee, and Ellen Marlowe joined the Frozen cast as sort of this new wave because they were workshopping the tour at the same time that they introduced us to the Broadway cast, and they were doing it sort of tangent
in unison.
Nice. To kind of create a new Frozen. They added a new duet for the girls. They re-choreographed some things, respaced some things, reteched a lot of stuff. And so we were kind of coming in to usher in this new era of Frozen on Broadway, while the tour was then going to also be doing that. And so a lot of the changes that we actually did came from the tour workshop. So our Broadway version and the tour's Broadway version have this like inextricable link, which I've learned about since being on tour, and that's been really cool.
Funny.
So the rehearsal process was long. It was like a month and a half, and usually if you're swinging into a Broadway show, you get a couple weeks and you're in. So the rehearsal process was long, and then we started the show in mid-February, and the pandemic had closed Broadway by whatever it was, the 14th of March or the 12th of March. And then subsequently Frozen on Broadway closed permanently. So I do hold the place in history as the last person to ever play Hans on Broadway.
Yeah. So with that being said, what was it like coming back to this role? And like, were there any differences this time around?
Differences in what way?
Just in this Hans, in this version of Hans for you, but also just in the actual process of doing it on tour versus on Broadway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are so many layers to this onion. The shows are similar enough that my muscle memory kicked in, but when it did kick in, it was wrong. Like, a lot of what I did on Broadway is close to the same, but a little different. Or exactly the same, but just happens in a different place. Or either starts the same and then turns into something I never knew, or starts as something I never knew, but then eventually becomes what I did before. Mm-hmm. So
confusing.
Very confusing. I mean, I think I almost would have rather learned something completely new because it would have been new, rather than trying to parse through old information and new information and sort it when it was necessary. So that was a challenge. It was also a huge uphill battle for us because we had 1 week, less than a week. We arrived on Wednesday. Our first rehearsal was Thursday. We had Monday off. And then the Thursday after that was our first show. We were doing it for a paying audience.
And when you say we, you are, of course, referring to Miss Mackenzie Kurtz, your Broadway Anna, who you get to do the show with again.
Yeah. And this is a Hannah Montana moment because it was truly the best of both worlds. if it wasn't going to be Mackenzie, it would have been Caroline Innebickler, who originated Anna on the Road. And I have known Caroline since I was like 8. I'll put that picture somewhere. It might be covering our faces right now. But like, I've known Caroline for 20 years. When I first heard that I was going to be joining the tour, I thought that I would be doing it with Caroline. But Caroline ended up leaving. Her last show was the Sunday before the week that we started. So we literally were ships passing in the night. But I did get to see like Caroline and, you know, give her a hug and a kiss and wish her well. And the only thing as cool as doing it with Caroline is the fact that I get to do it with Mackenzie, who got cast with me for the new generation of Frozen on Broadway, lost the role with me when the pandemic hit, and now gets this kind of redemption run on the road. There's so much I could say here. I mean, Mackenzie is out of this world. She is superhuman. What she had to do to get it, what I had to do to get into this show is insane. I feel like so proud of what I had to do, and my show is like a third of Mackenzie's show. So what Mackenzie had to do was like truly extraordinary, and the fact that we were able to, you know, because when you go into a show, when you go into a new show with new people, you're the new guys, you know, it's a little isolating, which isn't to say that the company wasn't welcoming. They were so welcoming. These are like the most lovely people ever. It's just, you know, you're in a rehearsal room, they're doing the play, you're on your own little islands. And the fact that we knew each other, we could support each other, we could talk each other through it, we could have each other's backs, that was like such a big tool for us and made that transition so much easier. And like, I don't know how I would have done if I didn't have Mackenzie by my side for this. I don't know how I would have done. I'm so glad that I have her.
I want to circle back just for 2 seconds to the question of, is there anything different about this Hans for you now that you've gotten another opportunity to kind of just play with the character again? Have you kind of found any new nuances or new undertones to the character?
Yeah, I mean, like, I've actually learned a lot about acting on this particular project. And, you know, for a lot of my life, I think probably because I started acting so young, like, I'm a very precise performer. I'm a very analytical performer. I dive really deep into the text. I figure out kind of exactly what I want to do, and then I do it. And because there was no time for that in this rehearsal process, and Adrian, the associate director who worked with us and put us into this show, talked about this a lot with us. The only option we had was to be present and reactive. We couldn't be proactive. We had to be reactive. Which isn't to say that we are on the back foot, but every second was kind of brand new. The necessity to meet the moment by literally taking it one step at a time really fundamentally changed the way that I do theater. And I have tried really hard, and I've really noticed Mackenzie try really hard too, and it makes it so dynamic between the two of us. It feels different every night. You know,
I will say I saw 2 different performances.
Right.
From you, from both of you, really. Like when I came out to visit in Tampa, and they weren't different.
There was something about this process being so truncated and so accelerated that forced us to just be kind of unrehearsed, kind of unrefined, and we've taken that forward with us, and that's fundamentally changed the way, I mean, I don't want to speak for Mackenzie, I think that she would feel the same way, but at least for me, like, it's fundamentally changed the way that I play Hans. Hello, Daddy! So, Samantha and I ended up having a very long conversation about all things Frozen, all things Broadway, all things tour, and when we were editing it, we were just like, you know what, this is really long, but it's a really great conversation, and we wanted to share all of the tiny little details with you. So we are going to split this video up into 2 parts. If you've been enjoying this conversation so far, please, please, please tune in to our next upload for part 2 of this interview, and we will see you then. Thanks, Daddy.